Welcome and hello to the Chit Chat Podcast episode #7. Yes, I said my intro the other way around. That's because on today's podcast, I'm doing something a little bit different. But before we get going, I just want to say, remember to subscribe if you haven't already to us on YouTube, Apple Podcast and Spotify, as we are trying to get to 100 subscribers across all our platforms. On this podcast, I'm going to do it a bit differently. People say it's risky to do this, but I want to change things up on one episode, and there's no better man to do this with. We're going to improvise. I have nothing written down, should I say, and we're just going to go with the flow and see what happens. So I have no better man to do this with other than comedian, actor, fellow podcaster, and Ireland's answer to the Tiger King. It's the one and only Tom O Mahony, everyone. Tom, how are you, man? How's things?
I'm all right, bar. You know what I mean? This is number 7. You waited till number 7. You had Cronin, you'd Ward, you'd Hayes, like a lineup of absolute dirt on before me. You waited till 7. 7. Did any of them give you advice on podcasting? Did any of them stay up, nursing, rubbing your head, talking you through the process of setting up a podcast?
You gotta treat me and keep them keen. You know, I can't be having you on straight away. But so look, Tom, we'll start off like I do on every podcast. How's your lockdown been for you?
It's great. Look at my mustache.
Oh God, it's getting longer and longer every time I see it. It's like an animal growing on your face.
I know. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's to be honest, it's great. It's actually great. You have to utilize one thing about being a comedian is it teaches you kind of look for the shit holidays and things like that, and hope you get a good story out of it. But what you do is you end up utilizing the best of a bad scenario because you know you've done so many dirt gigs and all the rest of it. But as well, you nearly kind of hope things go a bit wrong because nobody wants to hear a story of things going right. So it prepares you for the mental breaking that is lockdown. So I'm grand.
Now, I'm just going to ask, because obviously Tiger King came around at the like, were you one of those lads, like, you know, that watches the thing on Netflix, gets really inspired and then wants to be that person? I'm just curious, just based off the new look.
Oh, like when you went to see, you know, Billy, whatchamacallit, dancing at the, whatever his name is, and he all of a sudden you're...
Billy Elliot, no, it's 12 years in going, 12 years in going, what am I... I wanted to do Weldon. What am I doing here?
I'm not even from a miner's town. Like, what is this about? I don't even like this. What is this? Why am I still dancing?
Where's my Geordie accent coming from? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
The boat nearly passed me on Joe Exotic. People were watching it. And it's not me trying to be cynical or anything, but normally a lot of the time, like normal people and stuff like that, I dip in and I go, oh yeah, there's a reason why I don't like most things that people like.
Yeah.
But there was some, the Joe Exotic thing, it was bananas. But I've wanted to grow I've had mustaches and goatees and beards and stuff. I had beards out to here. And it was just the perfect time. And I had kind of a beard thing going on. And next I said, I'm getting rid of all this. And then I realized when I got to the mustache bit, and it's actually like halfway down, it turns white, which is weird. And I think I got a minor compliment from another comedian going, hey, that's not in a gay way, but that's pretty cool. I went, that's probably the greatest compliment I could have ever gotten in my life. So I hung on to the mustache, and I'm growing out a mullet. But the mullet is, it's attributed to the young fella. He's 11 months this Friday, and weirdly, his hair is growing into the most perfect mullet. Like he hasn't had his first haircut yet. So his hair is growing into a mullet. So it's like, well, if it's good enough for the Pope, it's good enough for me. So
I was going to ask you about being a father and stuff, and congratulations, of course. I've met your little cub. And he's absolutely, for anyone that's seen Tom's Instagram and seen his baby, he's an animal of a child. Like I looked at him and I got it was like looking at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson of babies. I suppose for you, Tom, you were so busy doing your play Defending the Caveman, which we talk about later and stuff. Was lockdown a blessing in disguise to get that time with your child through this kind of period?
Unbelievable. Like my wife is saying it too. She was only just back from maternity leave, like maybe about a month or whatever, and then all of a sudden this kicked in. It was like great. This is what immediately we looked immediately positive in the situation. How many, in what generation, none of our parents got that opportunity, you know what I mean, to spend all day every day. And I mean the trick, I suppose, is to try not be too overbearing, you know, or too much of a helly. But I think it probably benefits you in the long run in that you see, oh, he's grand, he bounces, you know, when he falls over. Whereas if you were only seeing him for half an hour when you come home from work or at the weekends, that might take way longer to learn. You know, so it's been a steep. Well, plus he's been a very easy child because he is very easygoing. He sleeps 11, 12 hours a night.
Wow.
He's as tough as like he's very, very strong child already.
He's built.
There is nothing baby. We tried all the baby things, you know, the baby protective things, like, put this on the cabinet. You know, these things for, you know, for bolting or for shutting. He's broken every one.
Bang.
No, he just rips open a drawer and the thing is holding. And you're like, how that yoke costs like each one of these costs like £3 or £4, and they're supposed to be the thing from Toys R Us or whatever. And he's just breaking out. He's just far too strong. So I mean, it's a good and bad in that he's only just starting to walk. So we're about to. I think we're going to have some work on our hands. But like I said, when he does run into trouble, he's fine. He's tough as nails.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if I saw him walk along the street in London, I'd go to the opposite side of the road, if I'm honest.
Yeah. He's ridiculously charming as well, so you got to be careful. Like, he'll just lull you in like
But like, let's go back to your early life, because on the podcast show, I go back and I like to see how people have started and their journey. What was early life for Tom like, going up in school and getting to where you are today? Because your journey, you've been a jack of all trades and have dabbled in literally everything. So let's go back to the beginning of Baby Tom.
Baby Tom, yeah. Baby Tom was countryside in South Tipperary. It was, very much a farming area we grew up in. And the idea was that you just wanted to grow up fast. There was no hanging around being people don't want to grow up these days. All you wanted when you were 5 was to be 25. And there was very much kind of not a tough guy, hard man kind of attitude, which is everywhere in rural Ireland, especially. Like, it's just every bloke is a hard bloke. You know what I mean? So that's what you wanted to be. So and there was a lot of just physical labor and stuff like that. So I got was a very adult sense of humor. Yes. That I found over a lot of my town friends and stuff like that. Like, I was cracking jokes and making jokes that was probably way too old for me, if you know what I mean. And then it just a regular, happy, very, very happy upbringing. But primary school was a mile over the road. Country school, secondary school was Tiptown. I went to. I actually didn't know. I didn't think I wanted to go to college. You joked about it earlier. I did want to be a welder. I actually wanted to be a welder. I was good at it and enjoyed it. It was kind of creative, you could be as well. But at the time, all the schools were being told, send them to college. We need pharmaceuticals and we need people in construction, because the country was booming at the time. So I went into construction. I became a civil engineer. And
when did you discover then your love for the world of comedy? Was it later on, or did you always know, like you were saying earlier, you used to crack jokes and you know what I mean?
I suppose the difference being is that I've been asked this a bunch of times, and I'm trying to pinpoint the time. Like, I loved comedy, but as far as I was concerned, everybody loved comedy, because especially in where we were in South Tipperary, it was a currency. Comedy was a currency in how you spoke to people. Like, you used it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the funniest lad in the room was always going to be the most popular person in the room. But so you tried to outdo each other, like comedians do. But I remember my parents had lived in the UK, and they brought back the BBC aerial, and weirdly it worked. Right. So we were able to get like BBC channels when people had, Sky was just on the verge of coming through, but it still wasn't showing the English channel. So we were able to get stand-up comedy. Jack D, a very young Jack D, had a show at the time in this underground cellar, even though it was called at the Apollo, but it wasn't the Apollo. It was a cellar comedy club. But I remember watching this going, well, this. I was like 5 watching this going, this is the bee's knees. Yeah. And trying to emulate him. And when other people talked about, like, Irish stand-ups at the time, which was like, who was doing stand-up? Brendan Grace was doing it. What's this young man, Mrs. Brown's Boys? He was trying to stand up, and I couldn't warm to any of that, because I'm like, man, I saw that joke when I was 5, and I could name 10 British and American comedians that could scream, and every so often an Irish would pop up, like Darragh O'Brien would pop up on your man's show, and you go, that's what I want. Or Dylan Moran would pop up, and lo and behold, some of the greatest comedians in the world. But it took 28 years for it to come around full circle before I gave it a crack. And it was only because of the downturn, really, like, and I just I had to get into something.
Now, something that, like, I always think about with comedians, and I don't know if you've been asked this question a lot, but when you're writing material, how do you know
Mm.
it's funny when you're writing?
Do you know, like, you've been doing what? You've been dancing,
Since I was
what,
about
12,
9.
13 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you know, like, if you put together a piece, you know, for a demo or for an expo of some sort, like, and
yeah,
you throw it, like, you would know if a step was a fucking waste of time. You know, if you knew a move was a waste of time, you go, what the fuck? That doesn't fit with that
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
fit. And you don't need to fucking stand back and see it on a videotape afterwards. You just know it the second you did it. You go, all right, that's gone. That's
Yeah.
gone, because I was all heading in that direction. That ain't fucking working. That's going to look like dog shit out the other end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the exact same. It's like driving. After a
Right.
while, you know how to stay between the ditches. You know, you do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I know you comedians would still say, "Oh, you got to trial stuff." That's not me.
Right.
I know I won't trial it, because I'm a relatively fast learner. Like, and because I've worked amongst people too in the regular world, I have a fair notion
Yeah.
what they want to hear. And listen, that takes 8-9 years going hard at it before you find that gear.
Because I was just about to say, you do a lot of traveling for your
Mm.
gigs. What is it that makes you want to get up on the road every day? Is it that atmosphere you get when you're in a comedy club around the country that you're like, this is worthwhile?
Oh yeah, like, and it's as natural as being happy when the sun is out. You know,
Yeah,
that kind of way.
yeah.
It's not like somebody has to go, here, you better get happy there because the sun is out. Like, you know what I mean? You don't need that. There's no, I have a regime. My head just slips. Work was never a problem. Like, the work
Yeah.
ethic was never a problem. But if you're doing something in a horrendous scenario, then that's always tough to fucking get out the door and go to. But you'll still do it. But
Yeah.
this is, man, you rock up. I'm typically the headliner, like, so I get to play with it a bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you have penned down something and you know it's good, and it's for the first time, you get a massive pop off it. Like, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing that comes close to it. So it doesn't. The driving, no, it doesn't. Not even close.
Have you ever had a moment? I don't know if you have. Probably not, because you're just a comedy genius.
Yes.
Have you ever had a moment of when you thought, right, this joke is shit hot. This joke is going to land, and it's going to be beautiful. And then it happens, and you just, there's not silence, but there's a bit of like, okay, that's not.
Well, it happens. It can happen in a few different ways. In that, change your room. So you could rock it and say the Laughter Lounge.
Yeah, yeah.
You go up the road, say, to the International Comedy Club. It mightn't work as well, or it mightn't work at all.
Yeah.
The MC on before you could have been dying on their hoop. You know what I mean? And then they go, right, please bring on. And all of a sudden you're walking on, and you got to dig this shit out of the ground for the first 5 minutes. But the stage maturity teaches you to point out the elephant in the room. Right, lads, let's roll up our sleeves and all enjoy this one, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but there's weird nights, like, where you just go, that's funny in 99% of the place. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, and then you find out that, you know, there's actually a funeral party in, and for some reason they thought it'd be a good idea to go to, you know, just out of bizarreness. There's nearly always a reason, or you're not feeling it either, you know. So, but there has been, like, I've had jokes where I'm going, listen, you stupid horse, this is funny. This is funny. What do I have to? And then you'll realize you put it away and you go, I'll come back to that. And a little seed sits at the back of your brain. And you'll go, that's what I need. I needed to pull the trigger at that point. Yeah. And again, it's like choreography. Like, you know, the story isn't told like by just all the moves.
Yeah.
There has to be a story, and there needs to be just a certain twist in the middle of it. Like, I was doing a bit, I remember it was about local radio.
Yeah.
And it was getting grand laughs, and it's not the most original piece ever, but I talked about, I'd been doing it. I was going, oh, this is funny. I know this is funny.
Yeah.
And I just did a bit about Declan Nerney, the country singer, the Irish country singer. It was just a bit about that, and how, his connections to Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
And just, it was just so silly of a connection, dropped in 3-second bit in the middle of it, and set off the remainder of the, and this is all, you could be 30 years, opening for the likes of Tiernan and stuff. He'll tell you, man, I'm 30 years doing this, and I'm still learning. And it's not that I've forgotten stuff. There's still more to learn. That's it. You know what I mean?
I think the moment you stop learning is the moment you're done, in a way, because you can continue to learn throughout your whole life,
Well, especially anything, I suppose, creative, you know, that
Yeah,
kind of way,
yeah.
like, because, and you'll see people, you go, Jesus, where did they come up with that, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
or what sent them to that place in their head to come up with that, or, you know, but still, if
Yeah.
they, and I've seen it, like, you know, this rock star vibe comes over an act or whatever that may have gotten a couple of sweet numbers,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're going to get some slap in the ass coming down the line to you, you know, because we were all there. You go, I'm probably the greatest in my genre in the world for a moment,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
you're
I have a question for you. I don't know if you get this, and I like people that perform as well, like dancers, singers. When you're out somewhere at a family party, right, or you're somewhere with a crowd and a group of friends, and they go to you, "Oh, sure, you're a dancer. Can you just do a bit of a dance there?" Or "You're a singer, sure. Would you do a bit of singing there?" Did you ever get Tom? Tell us a joke, sure. You're a comedian, and you're like, "This is my night off. Give it a rest." Like,
yeah, no, well, I normally get asked to dance. Actually, I'm
oh,
incredible
so
at it.
I forgot your ballet training is
Yes,
amazing.
well, you know, I was studied Juilliard, no big deal, relax, and we. Yeah, listen, it happens less and less now that I've become more and more well known, where people
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
oh, you know, come on. But yeah, you'll still get people going, go and tell us a joke, and I'll just flat out go, what do you do for a living? I'm a carpenter. Right, start building me a table, and we'll start some jokes. How's that one? Do you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
it in itself gets them to kind of go, huh, but almost in a nervous kind of laughter. You're like,
Yeah.
no, we're not doing the jokey thing. But you do find it's almost it's strange that I'm not in any way comparing myself to a professional fighter, but a friend of mine who's a professional MMA fighter.
Yeah.
He was on my podcast, and we were talking about, you know, is it tough at weddings and stuff like that when lads are langers drunk and stuff, and you've got the big, you know, cauliflower ears, you're built like a truck. Do lads square up to you? And he goes, you get it a little bit. He says, yeah, you do a bit. Like, going, you know, Jesus, I was handy enough myself in the day. I says, but I bet you get it even worse. Lads
Yeah.
get real into, and you do. So it only gets pointed out to me by other people, and I don't really understand. I didn't understand at the beginning what was the problem with finding out that I was, you know, a professional
Yeah.
comedian. But what it is people are going, I'm funny too. And you're going, yes, I've no doubt you are. I've no doubt you are. But let's park that and let's just have a normal conversation.
Can I just
like,
continue
you know.
to feed my baby if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I'm in the cubicle, please, sir. I'm in the toilet. I just need to use the toilet. Is that, you know?
Yeah. But you speak about MMA there. Am I right in saying you did do a bit of MMA growing up and fighting?
Yeah. Well, it was the martial arts, I remember, were huge in the 80s and
Yeah.
90s, especially in the likes of Kilkenny and Tipperary for some reason. I guess there was an explosion of martial arts movies or something. I don't know what it was like. But also, I was as wild as a lorry growing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was wild.
Oh, I can only
And
imagine.
I just, not brazen bold, like, but just a ball of just, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like lunacy. Like, so
Yeah.
the best thing my parents found when I was 4 years of age was to send me off to martial arts.
Right.
And it did. It puts manners on you because you're treated
Yeah.
like a man immediately, and you're told if you act the maggot, you're doing 25 push-ups. Simple as that. You know, these sort of things,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
taught. And it does give you, and it gives you a good. I hate the word grounding, but it does. Like, and it gives
Yeah.
you. I suppose, just gives you discipline.
That's what I was supposed to say. That's what I love about watching the sport, and I think I can, you know, just because I do musical theater and stuff, the connection I find with it personally is the discipline, because the discipline we have to have in college, in training to do what we do. The same with yourself with comedy and everything. It's that discipline of getting up in the morning and doing what you have to do, and the work ethic. That's what I love about the sport. People think that these guys, they just rock up and they fight, and they like the work ethic they have is just phenomenal. Any MMA fighter.
I'd been around a lot of what I thought were, you know, theatre professionals and all the rest of it, but
Yeah.
dedicated to it. It was really like a proper sport watching dancers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, oh, right, yeah, Jesus, right. This is a proper sport. They get in, they're cheery, they get to their job, and it's a proper thing, and there's
Yeah.
structure to it. You
Yeah.
know, where with stand up, it's kind of tough to put a structure to it unless you're very disciplined yourself, which is the only thing that probably stood to me.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you get lads who just, you know, they might be comic geniuses, but they're strolling in late, smoking a fag, you know, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's because they don't have that. There's no school to go to for stand up. You know that kind of way. There's no
know.
academy, you know.
I don't know if do you listen to Dave Chappelle? Because I was listening to a lot of Kevin Hart's stuff, and Dave Chappelle, like, he just gave up comedy. He's like, no, I don't want a gig, and he would go into a park, right, and get a little box, and he'd stand up and he'd just do a gig, and people would be walking past going, that's Dave Chappelle. Like, he's just just doing a comedy in the middle of a park, but like, he can just go and do that, which I think is phenomenal. Imagine just going, no, I could set out in arenas, but I'm gonna do all my stuff for free in a park. You know what I mean?
Well, he is. I mean, there's arguments to say he's possibly, because of that, he is an unbelievable artist. Now, it's easy enough to walk away from a thing when you're worth 500 million. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, so
you walked away from your HBO / Netflix / whatever, and it was worth, a couple of 100 million to you. She's like, yeah, but he's already made a couple of 100 million.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, he isn't an amazing artist, but at the same time, life has made a little bit, it's a bit of a softer landing,
Yeah.
And also, I'd love to have the ability to stand up. Now, I've done open air gigs, but when you get to the level of notoriety, and even Tiernan will admit this, like, and certain comedians will admit it, when you get to a certain level of notoriety, you could stand there with your finger up your nose for the first 10 minutes, and people will go, oh, go on. Is this sort of thing? Oh, this is good, actually. Do you know, so now there'll become a time when you'll be found out, that's for sure. And these lads have the backup to that, if that ever comes to it. But what I'm saying is, you get a lot more time on the ball, sporting wise. It's, as a sporting analogy, you get a lot more time on the ball when you're a vastly well-known comedian, But but yeah, it is very cool. It is very cool for Chappelle. He moved to some place like Idaho or some really white place.
Yeah,
like, it's like.
I think that's the thing about him. Like, and I think that's like what you say to me. I remember when I started off the podcast, I was talking to you, and I was going, Tom, I don't know, should I do this, and should I do that? Like, people like that do well. They don't. They just there's a level of, I don't care, I'm gonna do it, and I don't care what anyone else thinks. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like you said, with comedy, you can't be sensitive around comedy. You have to just go for it.
Yeah, and I still to this day get not surprised in a bad way, but just kind of a shock to my system when I'm around other people, and I'm like, oh, all right, you don't speak absolutely completely open, like, you don't rip each other asunder when you speak to each other, you know what I mean? Like, so I have to wind that back in. I'm like, oh, right, because the nastier and the funnier you can be to each other, and to the point that, because you're waiting for it.
Yeah.
And if somebody can get you with a punch a verbal punch to the chest, you're like, oh, that was good. That was good.
Let's talk about your acting career, because you appeared on RTE's Damo Ivor. Tell us about how all that kind of came about for you.
It was always to feed stand up. You know what I mean? Like, because the reality is, especially in this country, you can be the greatest stand up in the country, but unless you have TV. People have notoriety, and I wasn't doing the whole online social media sketch thing because, let's be honest, like, I mean, I'd want to shoot off both my feet, before I would do half of that stuff. Now, some of it you can have a bit of crack with it, and who am I to judge them now, because they're the kings of comedy right now, because we're all in lockdown and we've got no comedy clubs. Like, but at the time, the snobbiness of them was like, oh, I'm not doing. But I did always, I thought, well, I should probably try and get into acting of some sort. And just, I suppose, an advice guru would tell you what I did was probably exactly what you're supposed to do when you set a goal. And I did. I just said I want to be in the next big comedy, and that's coming to RTE. And I did, Now, we could talk for 3 hours as to how that came about, like, but I just did, and that was it. And there was nobody was taking that role off me. It was like,
What was it like taking on the role and joining the cast and meeting just being part of the whole team?
Yeah, it was grand, because at first you're nervous and stuff, because you're going, Jesus Christ, because you're in your head. But because it was with the Republic of Telly at the time, and Damo Ivor hadn't been commissioned its own show, it was very small budget, you know what I mean? And it was just Andy, who plays two characters, a couple other people who were behind the scenes, one guy in his camera, and a lot of the sketches, while the bones of them were there, the actual directing and logistics around it, they were all made up on the fly. You know, if it felt funny, let's do it. You know, so it was a soft entry, you know, into that.
Yeah.
And then by the time we had a bunch of those sketches done and the show got made, it was like, right, time to put on my big boy trousers here. Because I'd never learned scripts, nothing. Like my wife quite literally, because she's quite good at art, had to physically draw things to remind me of the next lines. Like, and we had them done. But again, the work ethic behind it was, I'm learning this. I don't know how I'm going to learn this because I've never had to learn anything like this before. But albeit, I'm sure somewhere in the world somebody does something similar. I'm guessing, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't have somebody drawing a horse beside a sentence that has the word horse in it. You know?
I mean, that's one way of method acting, I suppose. You know?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you hear it all, learning scripts and he's drawing animals. Oh, that animal line. Oh, I know what it is now. Hang on. Someone hands you the script. Your line. Sorry, what animal is that line?
Yeah, what's coming up next? Is there a picture of a car? I know that one. Yes, great.
Let's talk about Panto, because obviously, look, that's how we met. And like I said, I have been using the whole Panto cast on the podcast, and I will still keep dragging it out until I've used every single person from it. When you joined Panto at first, did you realize the task was at hand? Because I remember you walking in the first day. How are you? I'm Tom. Nice to meet you. And you're looking around, going, look at it, dancing. And now look at you 5 years later. You're doing a bit of dancing down there now and a bit of singing. What did you realize how much like Panto not would change your life, but it would give you a new perspective on doing shows and stuff?
It did. I at that stage, I suppose, when I got asked to do it, I had no idea what it was. My first Panto that I was in, that was my first Panto I was at. Like, I did not grow up around a theatre style play. Like, there was no, you know, although I did star in a play when I was like 4 or something like that. Like, but I had no concept of the size. But then it was all became very clear very quickly. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, right, there's this many people involved and this has to be a thing. And I have, coming from an engineering mind, you go, work quickly, don't get surprised. Get on this quickly. Now, you know, so when you see a team, you know, 6 dancers, you have a cast of maybe, I don't know, let's say 8, 9, you know, principals, whatever. And then there's behind all that as well. And you're going, oh, right, well, this is a real thing. Right. Don't get surprised when. So it was a learning curve. And I was there with Carl Spain too. Both of us were on a steep learning curve, like of Jesus Christ, look at the money alone going into this. So, I couldn't wait though, because it was such a new experience, because I had no notion what any of you did. I had no notion about anything. I could turn up and talk into a microphone. Yeah. But that was it.
Because I remember I was in the corridor stretching and you walked past and then you just did this like walk back to look at me as if to go, what are you doing? Why does your leg go there? And I remember that, it was hilarious. But I remember even with yourself and Carl in the first year, like, it was hilarious. On like, because obviously with the comedy thing, and in Panto, you kind of get away with ad-libbing and so on. Because I was speaking to Johnny on the podcast about ad-libbing on stage, like when in the chase, you wouldn't know what he was going to come out with. There was anticipation every night in the chase to try to see what he would say. But with you, was it fun getting to explore the world of ad-lib in Panto?
No, it wasn't. No, I liked the level of rigidity to a certain degree, because I ad-lib all the time with stand-up. Like, so I wanted to see what this, and I was geared for new experiences. So I want to see what makes these people work. Why do they work this way? So the ad-libbing thing, fine. But the handful of times I've done it, I do it in different places. See, for Johnny, it was fine. It was in the same spot every night, and he was just saying a different word.
Yeah.
But even he said it to me. When I changed a slight thing on him, he'd go sideways. Like, but I'd go, that's why I can't. And I feel as a part of a team, and I really enjoy being part of a team, because you never are when you're doing stand up. Yeah. I didn't want to mess other people up. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed when they give you that one night where you can just kind of act the maggot or whatever, like, you know, and get it all out of your system. But I have to wind. Trust me, Evan, you've seen me do a stand-up. I'm winding so much back in that way. I don't want to let that animal out of the cage. I prefer to be Panto Tom to a certain degree, because
I remember we were down at Limerick and we went to see you do one of your gigs, and I was, cause that was the first time I had seen you like on the stage beside like clips and stuff. And as soon as you started, I was like, I'm putting my head down. I'm putting my head down. He's going to call me out. He's going to call me out. I don't know what's next. I don't know what's next. And I think it actually made me slightly nervous then going into the rest of the show. So it's like, wow, there's comedy Tom, and like you said, there's panto Tom. I just off the top of my head, with like growing up in the country, does that help you with your stories and your kind of act for your comedy?
It does for sure. Like I said, it was a currency. People, that's how people spoke, and there would be time taken out of the day to tell you a funny story. And it was no good to say the same sugar and shite every day. You had to say something. You wanted to make people laugh. You know what I mean? So you try and have a story for them, or put at least a funny twist on it, some which way. Yeah. And so people had humor in them. So I say had like they've gotten rid of Tipperary, like they.
Look, that's gone.
Oh no, we've closed the door. We've closed. The Principality of Tipperary has sailed off into the ocean. There's now a giant void in the middle of Ireland. It was always a funny place. So it was a way people spoke. Yeah. It was no good to just say a thing matter of factly. There would have to be a bum ba dum to that thing they were trying to tell you. It was with it, and I didn't realize it until later. And gigging in different counties where they don't speak like that. Some counties that is not a thing. Yeah. Some towns that's not a thing. They're just matter of fact, and that's it. Yeah. But where I grew up, it was all about the humor. Like even if bad-minded people, like they just still would have to say something with a funny twist on it. You know what I mean? Like some of the best lines I've ever heard in my life have come out of our lads. Like just you're going, where did that come from? Like, and they're going, I don't even know. And I go, well, good, because it's going into my pocket and using. And I will get paid to say that line next week.
Who's the real winner? But let's talk about Defending the Caveman, which is your one-man show that you were touring before lockdown happened. What can you tell us about the show?
Yeah, it's a long-running show, Defending the Caveman. It's been in, I think, 44 different countries.
Wow.
And it had been in Ireland maybe 10, 12 years ago with Simon Delaney.
Yeah.
And they were in, oh God, what theatre was it? They got like it was great. They got like a 10-week run or something in, I can't remember the theatre. It's gone now, and the theatre's pulled down now since. But they came to me with the same producer that has the Panto.
Yes.
Robert C. Kelly was producing this, and he knew he needed a stand-up comedian because that's standard practice around the world. It's not always used, but they will more often than not they will try and use a stand-up comedian because it is a stand-up. It's quite stand-up-y. If that's a verb, I don't know if it's a verb, but it's stand-up-y. You know what I mean?
Neither of us went
in that. You mean it's It went against. It doesn't go too deep into a set character. I'm still a guy called Tom, and you meet him mid-row with his wife.
Right.
I'm Defending the Caveman. It's a bit of an odd name, and I've asked for it to just be changed to Caveman because Defending the Caveman does kind of put an offensive, a small bit, to women. But when women come to it, they quickly realize, oh, wait, this play is absolutely for us in a lot of ways. Yeah. It explains the thickness of men a lot of the time.
Right.
But it has a right bit of crack back and forth with it. And it was, nerve-wracking stuff to do it for the first time because it was structured stand-up, which I'd never done. And not done it for 2 hours with 15,000 words to be learned either. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
how many animals did you must have a zoo for your script there, did you?
None. No drawings, none, but just a lot of bullet points. I can tell you, a lot of bullet points to get through that. Like, but once you got through the first maybe 8-9 shows, it was just one was rolling into. It was just lovely, like.
Yeah. Is Defending the Caveman? Is there any plans for Defending the Caveman to come back next year?
Oh yeah, man. We had booked out the Liberty Hall Theatre for September, all weekends of September. Yeah. So that's gone sideways. So. And the plan was to tour back around the country again and to put even the year gone. We had 20. We had to pull 1 or 2 because we're just in odd towns that had taken it up.
Yeah,
very small towns where only local theatre would be on, and we just pulled it because the numbers weren't doing right. But in fairness, it did well. The rest of the country, then in just larger populations, and we yeah, the plan was to tour it back around again, but then this thing kicked in. Like there was with plans in place. We were gonna we were gonna do a venue that no other caveman, and it still runs in Vegas and still runs in where else does it run? I think it runs still in New York. I think.
Okay.
It's the longest running one man play in Broadway and Vegas history. But it's we were gonna get a venue ready to rock that nobody has ever used before for a play, and Caveman has never been anywhere in it. It was an actual cave. We're going to do it in an actual cave, film it, the whole lot. Yeah. So it's going to be, we're going to do it in Mitch's, and the place is amazing. Like Jack Hill has played down there, Monday has played down there. Like it can seat 150 people down in a cave in the main part of this theater. So it was in a cave. It's stunning. So hopefully when the world winds back to normal, the clock resets to 2019 again, please. Yes. We'll get another crack off it.
Now, let's obviously talk about podcasting, because for anyone that doesn't know, Tom, I listened to Tom's podcast a lot, and then what I was listening to, I was actually kind of going, I was humming and hawing about setting up a podcast, and then I actually went to Tom, and I said, look, how do I go about doing that? And Tom
the truth, you rang up and said, you clown, if you can have over 260 episodes out, surely be the God with my dancing feet, I can start my own podcast. Those are your exact words. And I went, yes, of course, Evan. What would you like me to do here?
Look, I'm exposed. I'm sorry, I'm being exposed. I can't help it. But how did you get inspired to start a podcast, and why did you start one in the first place?
It was myself and a guy called Jerry McBride. Jerry McBride is the head writer for Waterford Whispers and a very, very good stand-up comedian from Anna. We're great friends, we had a lot in common. We knew we could talk for hours on end, and I remember being on a few people's podcasts. I think Colin Geddes' podcast was general banter up in Belfast and stuff. And I just said, man, you can't shut us two up when we get nattered. Shouldn't we just try this and see what happens? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And I remember our very first podcast. I don't know. I think we should venture down this road again if we ever find time. But families and everything else. And we put together. It was before his child was born. We put together. We were just set the recorder. We had a little H2 Zoom, and we set it in the room recording. And we built, I think it was like a pushchair or a pram while talking the whole way through it. And it was actually, we listened to it back and went, that's actually not bad. And it was like, all right, that's been the name of the show alone, the Tom and Jerry Show. You're not going to get a better name than that. We did 3 seasons of that. That's for any of my Patreons. That's all the episodes are up there. But it's so we did 3 seasons, and I was bitten by the bug. I was just enjoying the hell out of it. I liked the fact that it was one set thing. You know what I mean? Every week, at least. If not a couple of times a week like it is now. But I liked that it was a set thing to do, and I had a bit of work to do to it and all the rest of it. And it was just a hell of a lot of fun to put it out the other end. And the interaction from people was the enjoyable thing. Going, oh, geez, yeah, I was in that pub once. Yeah. And this mad thing happened. So it's a different format of performance for people. Truth be told, if I didn't want to perform it for people, I wouldn't hit record. I'd just talk to myself like a lunatic in a darkened room. You know what I mean? But it is a performance. You know what I mean? So. And from there, then Jerry just ran into so much work, just with Whispers and his own marketing job and stuff. And I was getting busier and busier too. So trying to physically meet up, and the concept of doing it over Skype or Zoom at the time weren't really liking the idea of it, So we put it to bed, and then I'm sitting there looking at the recording gear, and I've gotten slightly half decent at editing and stuff. So I went, maybe I should start my own. And the first few then were just me talking, and then I went, maybe a guest or two. I think my first guests were like my grandparents. You know what I mean?
All right.
And they were great. It was before we got married, and they were giving us marriage advice and stuff like that, which was great because my grandmother passed away, so it's great to have her given, you know what I mean? So it's great to have that physically recorded, So and then I did a gig with Brendan Cummins, the ex-Tipperary goalkeeper. I went, would you would you come on my podcast? And he went, yeah, I'd love to come on your podcast. And the guy was like a dream guest. He just released his autobiography and gave me this machine gun of an hour, just a machine gun. And then I went, and this is how, and just the thought processes of how a professional athlete goes through, you know, his week and how he sets his goals and all the rest of it, and just boom, 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 and very honest and candid with a lot of things. Like the reaction of people was like, Jesus Christ, you got Brendan Cummins to talk for an hour, like, you know what I mean? This guy. And from there, then it was just just a cheeky neck on me, just asking people, just going, here, man, you know. And just like that, when I'm around people that are during the panto too, why not get them on as well, you know?
And now, what advice would you give to anybody that is looking to start a podcast based off your experience?
Can you not just tell them? Because I told you everything. Can you just copy and paste all the midnight and 2 a.m. WhatsApps and just put them up? Just read them out. You know, listen. The main thing is to give it a crack, right? I don't know to what end I would have to be meticulous and professional about a thing. So yeah, you can flute about with it, but what's the point? I would get a vibe. What's your vibe? Like, what are you going after? Like, are you really into horticulture? Are you really into something? Because you will run out of wind fairly quickly if your premise isn't something you're into. Maybe you're just into human interaction, which I am. I'm just I'm into people who are into their thing, you know, that kind of way. Even I've had a, you know, nutritionist on, sports nutritionist, like, and the guy was just demonic about sugar, you know what I mean? He was I just set the yoke recording and the guy just went hard after sugar like an hour. So, you know, and musicians, I know, like, there's bigger names that I could go after, like certain podcasts. That's what they do. And they would have bigger listenerships than I do. But I just can't. And maybe this is why I'm not more wealthy. Is that I can't bring myself around to. And I'm not which or whether, but I can't bring myself around to just going getting somebody for the sake of it. If we can't have a bit of crack for, you know, the guts of an hour. And a lot of the times I'm going, I have no care nor will nor want to know about your, you know, I don't, like, so
I know.
A lot of the premise I put on is like, if I go for a couple of pints with this person, do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yes.
That's the premise I put on it. And it comes across. I've had dedicated listeners from the very beginning who have bought all the merch. They've, you know what I mean? They come to my gigs. They, you know, they're dedicated. They go, yeah, I'm really like a comedian on last week, Rich Wilson, just a hell of a nice fella. And he talks openly about how he, you know, he has a mental health podcast, you know, but it's not hardcore in the fact that because he does, like 99% of the people out there, they don't know what they're talking about, even though a lot of them do try to profess to be professionals and they know about it. Most people don't. His whole thing is like, why I am the way I am. Why are you the way you are? Let's have a bit. And he's very funny, which helps, you know, the whole way through it. And, you know, he openly admitted, like, you know, he was a piece of crap back in the day, like, you know, to his ex-wife and stuff. And so, and like that, immediately responses were coming in from the same people who really liked, you know, wild savages that I've had on too. Like, you know, so I think just, if anything, it just opens people's eyes to, and mine, that there's loads of different types of people out there, and it's always interesting to get their perspective on life, you know, that kind of way.
Well, listen, Tom, look, that's all we have time for. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. You've been a gem.
Listen, Evan, that's all I have time for. Thanks for having me on the podcast, even though I'm seventh. But I'm just wrapping this up here now, if you don't mind.
Take it away, Tom. Take it away. Oh, Christ. But anyway, guys, look, go over to Tom's page, Tom O Mahony. He's about how many podcast shows do you have going on right now? Because have you got like 2 or 3?
No, there genuinely is. I've got the interview one, which is Buckshot, and part of the Buckshot brand then is RamblePod, which is me just quite literally rambling. And I normally have one out a week with the interview as well, but I've been kind of lacking on them because I've been putting more into the interviews. But also I have a weekly one with Owen Colgan of the Hardy Bucks called Harden Up Podcast. And then during the week, I have a live stream game show with comedians called Buckshot Sideshow. So if you follow my YouTube channel, it's where it all lands. It all
Yes.
lands in my YouTube channel. And I'm not even a big follower. I'm not a big YouTuber, but
Yeah.
because of the way things are with the where I load my podcasts, everything ends up on YouTube. So
Yes.
it's the handiest place to go, or just follow me on Instagram. You can,
Well, guys,
it really isn't that difficult.
Yes. So look, go give Tom a follow. If you're looking for an hour of pure madness and pure fun, I recommend you go listen. Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, make sure if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. And we are trying to get to 100 subscribers across all our platforms. Remember to follow us on Instagram at the Chit Chat Podcast, on Twitter at the Chit Chat _, and on Facebook at the Chit Chat Podcast. Guys, I'm Evan O'Hanlon from the Chit Chat Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.